Welcome, everyone, to Pathetic, the podcast. Geoff and Ted are off in the Bahamas somewhere, or Bermuda, somewhere out in the ocean. I think they're coming back tomorrow. But I am happy to be joined by the man, the myth, the legend. You've heard about him if you've listened to the podcast before. We are honored to be joined by Ted Smallwood. Ted, how are we doing on this beautiful Friday evening?
I'm doing well, Mike. Super excited to be with you guys. I want to be known as the Jets man because that's really where my heart and soul lies. But I do have some other takes that I'm willing to jump into. But truthfully, Jets over everything. I'm very excited to be with you guys tonight.
Yeah, we will definitely get to some Jets takes later on today. But we have, over 100 days until Jets season. I want to start off with Thursday night's game. Game 5 at the Garden. Unbelievable atmosphere. What a win for the Knicks. Really took it to the Pacers and didn't let them anywhere near that game. Brunson did his thing. Towns did his thing for the most part. And they really shut down Halliburton and made him look like his dad at that point. So very excited for Saturday night, ready to go. You win that game, I think the series is over. I think the Knicks will win in 7. Ted, what do you think, Ted? What's your thoughts on the game?
So here's my thing with the Knicks. I watch these games at the Garden, right? So you go from Indiana, which is what is happening in Indiana. Good atmosphere, Pat McAfee on the mic, crowd's electric. But what's actually happening there? Then you go to the Knicks game, and I have a hard time. And now I'm a Nets fan, so let me preface by saying that. But I watch the game, and I am looking in the first and second. It's Celebrity Row every night, and I'm 31 years old. I haven't seen the Knicks in a high octane conference finals. I think it's the first time in the finals or conference finals in 25 years.
Yep.
So it's become Celebrity Row. You see the Jenner, whatever her first name is, with Timothy Chalamet, this sort of
Yep.
thing. You see Spike Lee. You have everybody going on in there. So first of all, I'm gravitated towards who's sitting in the front row. I'm watching that half the game. Now to the actual basketball on the court, um, the Knicks are going to win the series. That's my opinion. They have, I don't want to say the better team, but they have the more experienced team, the better stars. The Pacers, I think, were good last year, got better this year, a little bit flash in the pan. To me, I think this is a who's going to lose to the Thunder type of series going on. But that being said, if they win in Indiana on Saturday night tomorrow, if it comes back to New York and the Knicks lose, the tabloids are going to go crazy. So I
Yep.
really think it's the Knicks series to lose. Can they, Halliburton hot and cold, can they win that series? Can they win game 6, essentially, make it to game 7, and then they're on their way? But great seeing basketball back in, the Mecca, as people will say.
Yep.
And that is, what I'm enjoying most. Like I said, just still looking at, Celebrity Row more than the game
Oh,
as we
I
move
am
through it.
I love seeing all the degenerates outside shutting down 7th Avenue. It's just like when you and me were after that Rangers conference final game where we were running around Madison Square Garden afterward for a while. Now, there was probably 10 times more people for the Knicks than there are for the Rangers, and that's to be expected for the most part. But I just love seeing New York City and seeing Midtown Manhattan look like that with all these crazy sports fans, going nuts for their teams and doing it in a way that's not destructive. We're not greasing poles. We're not eating horse poop. We're not burning cars and flipping things over. We're just having a good time. There's a couple of characters in there that are doing things, but for the most part, everyone's just enjoying themselves and having a great time. So, New York knows how to do it. All these other cities, they gotta put bacon fat on the poles to make sure that people aren't climbing up and everything else. So I'm excited. I wish I could go to the watch party on Saturday night. at Madison Square Garden. That's probably going to be a crazy scene down there, especially if they end up winning that game. But I think the first 10 minutes of that game is going to be very important because the Pacers are going to come out very hot. They think they're going to give them their best shot at the beginning of the game. And then if they can withstand that, especially if Halliburton gets hot, starts hitting a couple of threes right off the bat, that's when you're going to see this Knicks team really do it. And they've really done their best work this whole playoffs when their backs are against the wall. You know, you saw in the Boston series when they're down 20. You see in this series they were down 3-1, and they came back and really just gave Indiana no chance of winning that game on Thursday night. But really excited for the series, excited for the city. And again, I think we both agree if they win the game on Saturday night, this series is going to be a Knicks win on Monday night, which is going to be the wildest scene in Madison Square. Madison Square Garden might not stand after that if they end up winning that game. So,
but we've seen this before. You know, the Knicks in our lifetime specifically are the Knicks, and it would be so Knicks to win in Indiana, come home for Game 7. Now, last year we did this whole thing basically all over again.
yep.
Just had a couple injuries that kind of derailed the narrative. But, you know, it would be so Knicks to come back for Game 7, Garden on their feet, electric atmosphere, similar to, you know, some of the Rangers runs we've seen
Yep.
lately, recently, where the building is just so electric. You feel like you cannot lose. Everybody's there for a purpose. And then, boom, you get stood up on your head. Next thing you know, you're walking out depressed, similarly to being a New York sports fan for the last 20 years. So,
Yep.
would not surprise me if they lose a Game 7 at the Garden, but for all intents and purposes, if they win Game 6, this series is going to the Knicks, and we're seeing a Knicks Thunder final, which I don't know if that really drives the needle from a national perspective, so to speak. I think the Knicks obviously do. The Thunder kind of leave a little bit to be desired. But either way, super excited. As I said, Nets fan, but you know, I'm bought in. I'll be
Yeah.
watching Game 6 tomorrow, hoping for the Knicks to force a Game 7 because everybody loves to see that.
Absolutely. Bing bonging it all the way, my friend. So, but the other team that we have in common that we are watching right now is the first place New York Yankees. Right now, up 4-1 in Dodger Stadium, the scene of the crime from last October. We have a Judge home run in the first inning, Ohtani home run in the first inning, and then a couple home runs from Wells and Grisham. But curious to hear your thoughts on the Yankee season so far. I gave mine last week with our first kind of check-in at Memorial Day here. But your thoughts on the Yankees season so far?
Yeah, I'll save my pessimism for the Jets. That's where all my pessimism is said to be. So when it comes to the Yankees, this team's good. They are a good baseball team. They rank well in the numbers. You look from top to bottom, ERA, stats. And first of all, I have a point to make. When did baseball become every single advanced stat that's available to everyone? Like it used to be like, oh, they pitched to XYZ,
Right.
XYZ batting average. Now it's like they're WRC plus, they're OBH plus, like WAR, team war. I mean, when did this happen? Apparently, like in the last year and a half. But this team is ranking out very well. They have bad losses from early in the year. A lot of that's Devin Williams trying to close out games, finding your footing, XYZ. But their pitching is just, I mean, I haven't seen a Yankees team staff throw like this. And it's not guys that you'd think, it's not the, Rick Porcello, Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander Tigers of
Yep.
2008. It is absolutely just guys that are good. You have Rodon and Fried carrying the load, but then you have quality start after quality start from Clark Schmidt. You have Will Warren, who's in the last 6-7 starts has become, Nolan Ryan from a K per 9 perspective. They're a good baseball team. They really are. Are there holes? Yes. Is there holes with everybody? I mean, I saw on Twitter before the season starts, the Dodgers are going to set the win record. The Dodgers are playing, 1-2 games below what the Yankees are doing right now. It's hard. It's a long season, a lot to do. But I really think this team is good. They are a couple pieces away, I think, in a certain perspective. If they continue to get the pitching that they're going to get, they are going to be there. And I don't mean be there in the sense that I think they've won the AL East right now. I don't know if that's a hot take in, end of May, but I mean, we're 7 games up on the Rays. The Rays aren't a good
Right.
baseball team. If they don't win the AL East at this point, it's a failed season
Yep. I would
with how
agree.
they have sort of projected themselves and got to the certain point that they're at. But very excited for this weekend series at the Dodgers. I know we're recording this; they're at 4-1 currently in the bottom of the second. Little Grisham homer there, but you know overall very excited with how they performed. Great performances from guys you wouldn't necessarily expect it. Dominguez looks to be a serviceable player. Volpe looks to be, even though it gets a lot of hate, seems to be a serviceable player. I have nothing but good things to say, but if you have any other takes, I'm willing to kind of
Yeah.
go hand in hand with that.
Yeah. I mean, my concern is the bullpen, really. Other than Luke Weaver, who is, been unbelievable as the closer once they brought him back into that role. Because obviously he fell into that role last year, and honestly, if anybody else is closing games for them, it's a problem. I mean, you saw the other night with Devin Williams, who had to close because Weaver pitched 2 days in a row, and he almost blew a game against an Angel team, which is not anywhere near where they should be in terms of in the same ballpark as what the Yankees are doing. But you're right. The pitching has been unbelievable. I think when Heel gets back here in a couple of weeks, I think that's going to be your extra piece that you're going to need going forward. And, no one in this division is going to scare you. And really, no one other than Detroit in the American League is really going to scare you at this point. So, it's really going to come down to how they pitch in October, how they play in October, how Judge performs in October, because I think there was a lot of that narrative last year that up until he made that one home run in the World Series, in the division, in the championship series, that he wasn't performing as well as he could have in the playoffs. So I think that's going to be the narrative going forward: is get this team ready to go for October, and let's see how they do.
Yeah, I think it's come to that point. It's tough to say as a Yankees fan, really, because you're always kind of like you don't want to be that overzealous type sort of fan and outlook. But I mean, this team's they're good so far.
Yeah.
They're 19-12 above versus 500 teams and above. They're playing good baseball against those teams, and they're winning. The biggest thing to me is they're winning games that they score 2 runs. They're winning
Yep.
games that they score 3 runs, which was never the case in recent history. In terms of they'd lose a lot of those games, but I don't know if it's Boone mixing and matching, finding the right combinations to kind of, take that to the finish line. I know he just went with Mark Leiter a couple days ago when he had Weaver and Devin Williams down, but they're finding a way to capitalize on what is hot. And right now the pitching is hot. They're not giving up
Yep.
runs. They're not giving up home runs. It's under like zero point 0.5 home runs per nine in the last couple of weeks. Just,
Yep.
incredible performance by them. We'll see what this Dodger series, has entailed. But here's the thing with this Dodger series. It's like we could sweep them, and it does not change the World Series in
Yep.
any respect. We still lost. We're still back for revenge in the World Series.
Yep.
Winning a series in the end of May, early June does not change that fact. And then if they get swept, you're going to hear, "Oh, they're not that good." Blah, blah, blah. They can still never beat the
Right.
Dodgers. So it's a lose lose scenario. But we go into it knowing that I just want to see them get to 20 games over 500. That's the watermark I'm looking for, and we'll go from there.
Yep, I think that's what you look for. At this point, it's like the old Joe Torre games where you get to 15 over 500, then you get to 20, then you get to 25, and you just kind of build on the year as it goes along. So, really excited for the team this year. I think, as you said, um, I think all the criticism of Boone has certainly gone away. I don't think anyone is questioning anything he's doing at this point. I mean, he is finding all the right pieces and putting them in the right place. So excited for them. But I also want to get your thoughts on something that we've talked about on this podcast quite a bit. And and Ted has mentioned it quite a few times, is what's going on with Juan Soto. I was trying to be the voice of reason to say it's probably, him getting used to being the guy in on the Mets and everything like that. But I have a feeling that you have a slightly different take than that when it comes to Juan Soto at this point. So I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to let you cook here for a minute on Juan Soto.
All right, so here's my thoughts on Juan Soto. I'm waiting for my weekly Jets takes, which will be way better than this. But Juan Soto is a topic I'm interested in, and let me tell you why. So, grew up on Yankees, loved Yankees was my first love. Played baseball, grew up playing baseball, grew up loving baseball. I in later life of where I am now, I'm a bit more of a Jets fan. I'd say Jets are the number one priority in my life. Yankees have taken second fiddle. Juan Soto brings me back to my childhood. It brings me back to the guy that was just better than everybody else in a different way. Judge is the best player in baseball. We all know that. But Juan Soto had that aura, had that, like, this is our guy. This is the thing I want. This is the best player I've ever seen in a different aspect than Judge is. Judge is homegrown, great talent, amazing, that sort of thing. Like, love watching him. But when Juan Soto spent 1 year with the Yankees, I was enamored with him as a Yankee. The shuffle, the way he interacted with the crowd, the way he
Yep.
fit in. It was just everything that encompasses a New York Yankee. And think about the New York Yankees. This is a freaking organization that has so much rich history, so many great players. Like, it's very difficult to come into the Yankees organization and be a guy like Juan Soto was. And
Yep.
he was that guy. He came in and did everything the right way, had the energy the right way, was beloved by the fans. And money aside, decision aside, he's with the Mets now. I'm not going to comment and or explain as to how that happened, why that happened, whether Miami was telling him to go to the Mets. I know it was recently in the reports, XYZ. He's a Met. I miss him. I miss Juan Soto. I'm a Yankee fan. I'm going to say this on the podcast just to say it. I'm a Yankee fan, and I miss Juan Soto. I watch Juan Soto highlights. I look at Juan Soto playing with the Mets, and I say, damn, I wish that guy still played for the Yankees. I've moved on. I follow, WFAN and all the, New York talk radio, and see that it's a big topic of conversation. But then I watch the Mets. My mom's a Mets fan. I have a lot of Mets going on in my life. My uncle's a big Mets fan.
Yeah,
The guy,
Ted's a big Met fan. So
Ted's a big Mets fan. The guy hates it there. He hates it. Now he may get more comfortable in a year or two. And I think the big thing about this is in a year's time, it's not going to be like, oh, why'd you spurn the Yankees or leave the Yankees for the Mets? In a year's time, it's just going to be like that's the decision that he made. And it's now, done with, and he's on the Mets and that sort of thing. But this entire year is going to be horrible for Juan Soto. Horrible.
yeah,
And you can take the numbers and you can look at the numbers and say he sucks, because he does suck. He sucks right now. He
Volpe's
is
got a better stats than he does right now.
oh yeah, no, he is like rookie Aaron Judge, if not worse, with less strikeouts. You look at, oh, he's hit the ball hard, this, that, the other thing. Nobody looks at the baseball card and goes, oh, what was his exit velocity in 2026 or 2025? That's not how this works. It's you're hitting 230, you have 8 home runs, and it's fucking June. So that is how this kind of goes. And until he can get out of that, but the thing is he has reached a point that he needs to go like, and we were doing this the other day, Mike. He needs to go
Yep.
40 for 100 just to hit 280. Like, he
Yep.
needs to hit 400 for 2 months just to hit 280. Like, the season's over. There's
Yep.
no chance of him having a good season. His ceiling at this point is 265, 30 home runs, 85, 90 RBIs. That's at the point that we're at. Unless he goes absolutely nuclear, which I don't see happening. And the reason I don't see that happening, and the biggest thing about this entire kind of phenomenon of Juan Soto on the Mets is he looks miserable.
Yeah.
Absolutely miserable. I've never seen somebody look so not like themselves. I'll give you this analogy and then I'll stop on Juan Soto because we can, move on to other topics or let you give your point. But Juan Soto to me looks like a person that is about to meet their in laws and they're concerned about a certain thing. Maybe it's a face tattoo. Maybe it's that they had a DUI. Maybe it's that they have some sort of criminal record. And he's going into it so timid, so fearful of what they're going to think, how they're going to treat him. Like the Yankees, that was not how he acted. Maybe it's a contract year. Maybe it's this, that, and the other. It's not how he was. It's
Yeah.
just so bizarre. Like there's no energy around him, no aura that existed. Now he did have a bad year with the Padres a couple of years ago. Similar sort of numbers as he has now. Maybe that's
Yep.
playing into it. New scene, new place, takes time to get acclimated. But he had 1 year with the Yankees and he was just dynamite.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it there. I'll leave
Yeah.
it there.
Yeah. I can't argue with a lot of what you said. I am on the thing of him being like that year in San Diego where he's getting used to being in New York, being used to the guy he was 1A with Judge when he was here on the Yankees. When he's on the Mets, it's just him. And once you get the New York tabloids spiraling and foaming at the mouth and having everybody come out and start talking and asking questions and talking to, his roommate's cousin's brother, whoever, who said something about him being upset or his parents choosing the Mets for him, they're all going to go nuts over that. So I think it's going to take some time. I think this year is obviously going to be a wash at this point, but he can also make up for that in the playoffs. I think if the Mets he ends up in the playoffs where he has just been absolute money his whole career, and do that for them in the playoffs and get them over the hump and get them to a World Series where they're going to be playing the Yankees. In my opinion, that was my preseason pick, is a Subway Series to start the year. So if he could do that, I think Met fans will be happy with this year. But I agree with you. I think this regular season is a wash at this point. Just get used to it and get ready for next season to hopefully be back where Juan Soto should be in terms of his numbers. So, but
Absolutely.
I brought you on this podcast for one reason and one reason only. We've talked about this a lot. If you've heard the podcast before, you've heard about Smallwood's takes on the Jets, our text chains. We will be reading the text chains, highly redacted for content after these games here. But I want to hear your thoughts on Aaron Glenn and this offseason so far with the Jets, because my prediction was 13-4, I think was my win-loss for the Jets this year. So I'm curious where your head's at when it comes to the Jets, and we'll take it from there. But strap in, folks. This is the part of the podcast. If you fast forward through the rest of this, stop right here and listen to this, because this is where he's going to cook right now.
No, this is where my bread is buttered, and I can't
Yeah.
wait for the regular season. I can't wait for that first beer in my life. Regular season beer, preseason beers don't count. I
No.
cannot wait to be in the stands. I cannot wait to share the misery with my fellow compadres. But also, maybe not this year. We'll see how it goes. But this is where I think it all comes together for me, not the Jets, of course. So I hope you guys have a segment for my tweets and texts. They get a little
Oh.
bit crazy, but it's all out of passion, and that's really what it comes down to. And I've
Yep.
been beaten and beaten down this franchise. I know Ted, the other Ted, is on the podcast, and he's like, I've lived with this for 40 years. Well, I've lived with it for 15, and it's just as miserable. It's been terrible for
He
this
at least
organization.
saw the Super Bowl at Super Bowl 3. We haven't seen, and we've seen like 2 AFC championship games in our whole life. So it's,
Yeah, we've seen nothing other than that short run with Rex Ryan, which was fun. But even then was a little bit. I think it was still high school or right after high school. And, it's not as enjoyable as it would be now. So my thought on the Jets, and I've been in and out on the Jets so let me separate it. From a fan perspective, I've never been out. From is this organization going in the right direction? I have been in and out. And the reason I've been in and out is I am a Joe Douglas truther. I think he made a lot of great moves. I think they hired incompetent coaches. I think the owner continuously gets in the way. And I think if you look at the skill and the talent on the Jets roster from 6 years ago to now, it's so different. There is so much more
Yep.
talent. So, we have people that might be all pros or might get to a Pro Bowl. 6 years ago, maybe Ryan Fitzpatrick, if, you're, chucking in people that have a one good season and give them a little piece.
Right.
So
14 guys opted out of the Pro Bowl, and then Fitzpatrick gets in. Right.
correct. So that's where the background of this all starts. Let me get to this year because nobody cares about the past. Justin Fields, and I don't need to do this for a hot, podcast take, will be mediocre. I hate to break it down to all of you. He will not be anything more than mediocre. And the reason I say that is that this franchise is cursed, and they have 1 year with their core to make this work. Maybe two. 1 year. We've already been through this with Quinnen Williams. We've already been through this with Sauce Gardner. We've already been through this with Garrett Wilson. We've already been through this with Brees Hall. I'm naming all the people that everybody around the league is like, these guys are why the Jets could be good. But
Yep.
they could have been good for 3 years now, and they haven't been. They've never been good. They have not been good since a decade ago, if not more. They
Right.
haven't made the playoffs in 14 years, so a decade
Correct.
isn't even I just default to a decade because I think that's the amount of time that somebody could take to be good, but that's not even true. It's more than a decade. So what I am excited about, though, I don't think they'll be good. So 13-4 that you said, horrible projection in my
Yeah.
opinion. I think you're looking at ceiling 9-8. Ceiling is 9-8. I think you're more so looking at 6-11, 7-10, that sort of kind of range. Now it does depend on other factors, but ultimately, first year coaches with teams that are previously bad are generally you generally don't see a 13-4 jump. You'll see maybe a 9-8. You'll see a 10-7, and
Right.
then the year after that, you're going to see that 13-4, 14-3 type year. I do like Aaron Glenn, though. I think he's real. I think he played for the organization, so he cares. Can he overcome what is now proven that Woody Johnson sucks?
Yeah.
Like, can he overcome an owner that can't stay out of his own way, that pisses in the hallway? Like,
Yep.
that is now the point. Can he do
Yeah.
that? Well, remains to be seen. But that is the issue. It's not. It has nothing. It almost might have nothing to do with can he coach? It's more so can he avoid this person who has continuously put a cog in the organization to stop doing that.
Yeah. I mean, I do like that they got rid of a lot of their back office when they cleaned house with Douglas and everyone else. They got rid of a lot of these analytics guys and football strategy guys and all these other people that have been there for 25 years and haven't won a thing. They finally told them to get out at this point because they have to bring in new people. I think this is a chance for this organization to put their foot down and say, we are not going to do things the way they've been done. We're not going to be the same old Jets anymore. So you have a new general manager, you have a new head coach. They both came in at the same time. This is not one of those situations like Saleh and Douglas and everyone else who's been there where you're ping ponging back and forth between a GM and a coach, and one picks the other and the other one doesn't answer to the other one. There's a clear line of delineation here in terms of who's in charge of what, and Glenn's in charge of the football, and I trust this guy because, like you said, he's been a Jet his whole career. That's why I'm so optimistic about this team, and their schedule is pretty easy in terms of who they're playing this year. They're not playing the AFC, all the AFC West. They're not playing the NFC North. They're not playing all these teams that are generally good, and they got a good schedule because they finished so bad last year. So I'm optimistic. I'm always optimistic. 13-4 might be one of the lowest win totals I've probably had for them on the win losses to start the year, but excited for the season and excited for your takes throughout the season as well, because we will certainly have you on the podcast as well and go through that, the texts and everything else, because folks, strap in for those, because it is
wild.
It is wild, and they are. It's like the 7 stages of grief all in one football game. You got anger, resentment, acceptance, all of them. You're going to go through all of them. We might even break them down and say, this is the anger part, this is the sadness part, this is the acceptance part. So we'll go through all of those as well. But
they're very in depth too.
Yeah,
no detail, depending on how it goes. But one thing I want to say, you make an amazing point when you said earlier. Now it's like the ducks are in the room. We know who reports to who. What other organization, like and I could be wrong here. This might happen, throughout the NFL. But what organization has beaten reporters being like, this is how the foundation of the organization will work? Robert Saleh will report to Joe Douglas, who will report to Woody Johnson. And Woody Johnson is obviously the owner, so he's in charge. But Robert Saleh is third in command because he reports to nobody does that. The organization just does nothing right. They do nothing ever right. And that is the big battle that we deal with every single year.
Yeah, I know. And, that's part of the reason why we have this podcast is we're pathetic. Our sports teams, for the most part, are pathetic. So, we are all excited right now for Yankees and Mets and the Knicks, but we really haven't really gotten into the pathetic parts of this podcast yet because football season hasn't started. And that's when we're going to see us turn from this positivity podcast into, a bunch of, angry, upset people on a Monday morning when we recap those games and see each other in the office there. But we're getting close to time here, but wanted to, any other takes, thoughts you had before we get to some picks? I have some picks that I have every single week. If you have a pick, certainly feel free to bring one on, but anything else you want to bring up here while we got you on?
So I do want to give a Jets take. Not necessarily a take in the sense of something. I want to give a stat prediction. So, and we're not going for cliche here. I'm going for something that's going to be a bit of an. I believe Breece Hall will rush for 1,500 yards this year. I'm going to go out there on that limb.
All right.
You want to know why? Because they have a new scheme. It's going to be much more devoted to the run. We're going to be getting Justin Fields options. We're going to be running a college offense this year. I'm ready for all of it. 1,500. Maybe that's aggressive. Can I backtrack on the live podcast? Can I go 1,250?
1,500. I'm in. I'll bet it right now. I'll go right on DraftKings and let's do it.
I think it's his. I think he's going to open it up, and he's looking for a contract that I don't think the Jets are going to pay.
No, probably not.
I'm going 1,500.
I like it.
Preseason Jet Stakes. We'll be back with more Jet Stakes probably every week as we continue to probably be miserable. But otherwise, let's get to your picks. I can throw a pick in. I love picks.
Yeah. So to recap my pick from last week, I had the National Lacrosse League Championship game. I had the Buffalo Bison beating Saskatchewan Rush -1.5. They won by 3, and we got the over. It was 20.5, 21 goals. So we just got the over at the end of the game on a couple of empty netters. So I will take the win, 2-0 for the people. All excited there. when it comes to the picks for this week, we are going. It is basketball time, so we are all in for Knicks, but we're going across the pond. We're going over to Poland, the Polish Basketball League. I'm not sure exactly what they call the league itself, but I'm going to take the Legia Warszawas minus
Okay.
1.5 against the Anwil Walchewiks. And I guess it's a playoff game because I think it's playoffs all around the country, all around the world in terms of basketball right now. I'm also going to take the over in this game. It's only 162 points. I mean, it is Polish basketball, so I mean, it's certainly not NBA in terms of 240-point games, but 162 is pretty low. So I'm going to take the over in it too. So give me the Legia Warszawas and the over, and that game is on Monday. June 2nd, I think at like 3 a.m. So if you can't sleep over the weekend, take a look at it.
Are you sure you're pronouncing that right?
Probably not, but that's part of the fun.
Hopefully, there's no Poland listeners.
No, I don't think we have
you.
too many numbers in Poland right now. So, but you have a pick?
I got to get celebrity pick, and this is not in Poland, and more so what people would kind of think. So we got the Stanley Cup coming up, which we didn't touch on, but we have a rematch, which is kind of cool.
Yeah,
we got the Florida Panthers versus the Edmonton Oilers. Edmonton is going to win.
I agree.
It's already decided. But I'm going to go a step further. Edmonton exact series score 4-1. Edmonton in 5. Get it in. Don't know the odds, assuming it's plus money, obviously.
Right.
Get it in. Edmonton in 5. It's happening. Denzel. McDavid gets his first Stanley Cup. I'm rooting for the Oilers. I'm rooting for the Yankees. I'm rooting for the Jets. I'm even rooting for the Knicks at this point. And we're gonna enjoy this height of, other than college football and NFL, height of sports season right now. NBA, NHL playoffs, Yankees baseball. We're rolling.
Yep, absolutely. Ted, this was so much fun. I hope everyone else enjoyed it as much as I did. Keep an eye out for more episodes. Ted and Geoff will be back next week. Hopefully I didn't break anything here in terms of the technology on this. So keep an eye out for more from us, and have a great night, everybody. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate the invite, and thanks for having me on. Great night.